0. So technically you're live right now. So anything you say can and will be used against you.
I sincerely hope so.
Right. Now, all right, let me go in and make sure that we're good tech-wise, give people some time to get in. Let me set up the engineering thing here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, we got Stavanger Norway's in the house. All right. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, I'm out here next to a bubble machine.
I thought they were orbs for a minute.
Yeah, I think that's what they are. They're going freaking nuts. Yeah, my wife has been resting up, and so I had to come out and broadcast here today and yesterday. All right, let's see here. What do we got? Yeah, I'm excited about this show. We're going to roll this out formally here in a little bit. Hello, Cleo Ferraro. Let's see. For any of you who are watching that are new, and if you have any issues with commenting, I guess you don't if you're saying anything. But if there's anyone out there that's watching and would like to comment and can't, I'm not sure if Facebook has corrected the ability to comment unless you're actually on the page, my page, where it originates. I think they fixed it, but I just wanted to put that in there. Okay, let me check the sound. Okay, we're good there. And let me share this through the network real quick. If these shows resonate with you, please share. We've been suppressed a little bit by this part of the illusionary matrix we call Facebook social media, but that's okay. We thank you for the opportunity to allow us to broadcast until we make our much anticipated debut in the next week or two on our own site. Okay, here we go. All right. Hello, Aline, Stavanger, Norway. My dear friend, Cleo Ferraro. Julia Weiss, how you doing? We're going to go ahead and formally roll the show out. If you guys would help us by sharing these on your page or to groups, we'd appreciate it so we can get around the algorithms of Facebook and get more people into the house while we're doing this live. We've got an exciting show today. For those who see some new faces here, just to let you know, my name's Todd Medina. This is the Soulogy Network. This is, I believe, our 668th episode of Soul Speaks 5D. It's a conversation. And today we're having a conversation with Colin R. Turner. He's a Dublin-born writer, musician, and a social activist. He immersed himself in a young age into music, so we have a lot in common there. I want to go down here to, he's got a very wide, broad range of life experience, interests, and passions. But something that caught my eye here, Colin quickly realized that our profit-centric system is responsible for some of the greatest issues we face in the world today, from poverty to environmental destruction, wars to monopolization of resources, growing personal debt, and insane governmental debt. Go down here a little bit more, and he talks about how we've outgrown the antiquated monetary system, which I just plug in right now, that part of the Soulogy Network, as we received in transmissions, channelings, downloads, whatever you want to call it, intuition and knowing, we are part of a movement which we call 5D commerce, which is probably along the same lines what Colin is pursuing. Colin's ventures include the Free World Charter, a set of 10 guiding principles by which we could create a world of abundance and fairness to all. Free Worlder, worldwide people power, free sharing site that encourages the giving and receiving of goods, and Honor Pay, a site focused on encouraging appreciation, gratitude for rewarding honors to others. He's got books, F-Day, The Second Dawn of Man, a fictional dramatization of the transition to a money-free world, and Into the Open Economy, a nonfiction discussion of the problems caused by today's money system and detailed description of a fair and more sustainable approach. So we'll ask Colin when the show's over, or if he's got somebody who's connected with him, to put all links to get to find him, and also his resources, books, and that type of thing. But without further ado, let me welcome Colin to the show. Thank you for joining us today, sharing space with us, and honoring us with your presence.
Oh, you're very kind. Thanks very much, and thank you for having me on the show. I have to say I haven't been aware of the Soulogy network until actually our mutual friend Michael put us in touch. So thanks to say Michael for that, for doing that as well. So it's great to be here. And yep, I'm always ready to talk for anyone who's ready to listen.
Well, you know, I can tell, I think we all have a little telepathy that's expanding right now as we move on, but I can tell you've got the same rebel blood that I do. I can just tell. But, you know, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of subject matter here with you. But I think for certain we want to definitely touch on your ideas of the commerce transition that we're finding it faced with, and that we're actually part of, and how that happens both in. I think that's a very good conversation to have. I'd like to ask you. Now, you're originally from Dublin, Ireland, and I don't know if I wanted to ask you. I guess in my own way, have you always been a ballsy rebel? But or maybe I mean, did you wake up like this? Were you always like this, or did you have a moment? A lot of people talk about awakening and ascension, and you know, that moment. Did you have a moment when you just said, "Enough of this. This is BS. This is not real. There's got to be a higher vibration that we can connect to and sustain and materialize."
Yeah. Well, yeah. I start by saying actually that it's interesting that you say that you're a musician as well, because I do think that this kind of way of thinking, it kind of lends itself more to musical brains more easily than it does to ordinary brains, shall we say. What I mean by that is that I don't actually have any links or anything to quote here, but there is some evidence that people who indulge in writing and playing music do kind of tend to have different neural pathways than most people, you know. And that's actually quite evidenced in the fact of people like myself, or people like Peter Joseph, or Michael Tellinger, or Sasha Stone. There's a whole list of all these guys who are kind of promoting similar ideas to myself, and we're all musicians, every one of us. And so it's interesting, and of course your good self. So I think it's there is something in that, and I think that that creative right brain sort of does tend to sort of make strange pathways that most people wouldn't really be aware of. So there is that. But actually, on the reason why I mentioned that is that, and from my own personal end, one of the big sort of factors, I suppose, for starting to come to this way of thinking was actually that I really wanted to make a living from music. You know, this was originally my dream as a young boy and a teenager and young adult. Was always I wanted to make a living from music, and of course, that's an extremely difficult thing to do. Is when you want to make money from your own original writings, your own original music. You need to be extraordinarily lucky, or you need to have extraordinarily good connections, or there's a whole load of things really have to go right for that to actually happen. So there's, for every musical success story, there are like thousands, tens of thousands of failures, and I suppose I number among those failures in that sort of department. So that kind of set me off kind of on the wrong foot from quite a young age, because I really thinking to myself, well, here I have this, what to me was this great talent, or what I thought was something that was people would like to hear, or it was like actually trying to turn that into a bankable career was just nigh on impossible, and I spent many years trying to do that. And so I suppose that was kind of the sort of instigating factor of maybe a later sort of catalyzing moment, or epiphany, as you were. But later on, then, of course, I moved out of music entirely, and I went down the business route, and I actually had quite a successful business for a number of years. And after a while, I decided to get out of that business because I'd done quite well out of it, and I just wanted to change. So I was able to be in a position to actually sell the business for quite a considerable amount of money, and this gave me all this wonderful time and space off to be able to not to be worrying about making ends meet and paying the mortgage and paying all the bills. So I could just basically put all this money in the bank and just relax and concentrate on music, the thing that I really want to do. So I went back into music at that stage. And of course, I spent a lot of time and money and effort working on CDs and getting stuff out there. And same thing happened. It was like a really, really difficult process. But of course, another thing happened during that time when I had all this spare time and without the business, was I was starting to investigate other different sources of information. Obviously, the internet was becoming bigger and bigger around that time, and we all suddenly became exposed to all these ideas that we'd never really been exposed to before. I soaked up a lot of that information, including like even stuff like from Peter Joseph, like the Zeitgeist movies. Stuff like the Venus Project, New Earth Nation, all these sort of things that we're kind of starting off, or we're kind of getting off the ground really on the internet at that stage. So I became sort of fascinated by this idea of, this is crazy. How could you possibly have a world without money? And of course, over time, as with pretty much everyone who kind of arrives at the same conclusion that I arrived at, is that it becomes, you have to do this kind of mental subconscious gymnastics, I suppose, to actually get your head around it, to see how it can work, because on the face of it, it seems impossible.
Yeah.
But after a while, it's kind of, I think it tends to sort of percolate in the brain over a period of time. And that happened with me, and I've seen that happen over and over again with other people that I know, who they at first they completely think it's an absurd idea. But then they come back to me 6 months later and say, "Yeah, what was that thing you were talking about?" Because it's like something that I don't know, like the subconscious mind is like the sort of a calculator, and it sort of calculates and kind of says, "Yeah, it's possible," and you're kind of saying, "No, it's not." So there's a little kind of a dialogue going there. So,
well, you mentioned neural pathways, and in regard to something else, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, it's a new neural pathway.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to even think outside the box. How did you become? I mean, you're obviously well versed in a lot of the things you mentioned. I was just talking about Zeitgeist the other day, and I realized how long ago that came out, and then everything that came from it. But you seem to be particularly focused on what I call the 5D commerce, or the new commerce, non-monetary commerce, because I think we probably share the same sentiment in that, however we want to look at this, whether it's the Matrix or the Big Bad Wolf or fate or whatever, the primary tool is the financial system, which in some way or another embeds in our consciousness, which in reality is a form of enslavement, where we are serving this illusionary consciousness or implanted consciousness, which I'm glad to see somebody attacking it, for lack of a better word. How did you get to the point where you really started to make that your focus?
Well, a few years after I had sold my business, like I said, I spent quite a lot of time, I suppose, contemplating and meditating on these ideas, and I eventually came to what I actually wanted to do. Was I had seen stuff like Zeitgeist and Venus Projects and all these sort of things, and I felt that they had things that I liked and agreed with, and things that I didn't like and didn't agree with. And I kind of felt that wouldn't it be nice to actually kind of just distill the best ideas from all of these separate movements and try and just create some kind of like one single common denominator movement of all, to actually basically define more or less what everyone was trying to do. And in that process, then I came up with the Free World Charter, which was basically what I defined as like just 10 principles for operating a better type of society. And included in those 10 principles was the idea of moving beyond trade and replacing that with cooperation based on education. And that's just one of the 10 principles. The other ones are basically prioritizing nature and our physical reality above all other things, all other imaginary things which maybe are not so helpful and can be divisive. I suppose religion would be among there. It's more or less not saying that you can't be religious, but saying that really our physical predicament and our reality must take precedence before any of that kind of stuff, because the physical stuff is more important. And of course, if one of us is causing harm to our physical environment, then that's affecting other people. So it's really important that we respect the environment. All this kind of stuff is pretty basic. And another stuff, was just about really about preserving the environment, preserving our biosphere for future generations. Yeah. So a lot of it's really, really simple, obvious stuff, but I just wanted to put it down in black and white, and including the idea of like Principle 6, which takes out basically the trading system. And of course, that's been the most controversial aspect of that, of course, because a lot of people won't agree with that, and that's fine. They're in that place. And we're just moving forward. But of course, a lot of people really do resonate with that idea.
Yeah, I resonate with it. I mean, I think it's it's a an evolving collective neural pathway. I don't think there's a guidebook on it. But I think the term you used earlier. You said honor pay.
Yeah.
Can you still hear me? Yeah. Use the term. I know one of the terms, or one of the names you have is honor pay.
Yeah.
I use the term honor, or the honor system, gifting, pay it forward. I guess, and with that being said, how much focus, in your opinion, as we'll just use the monetary or the new commerce as an example from the 10 principles or the 10 guidelines, how much needs to be said or spoken about the very consciousness we carry versus the old 3D, for lack of a better way to describe it, the old 3D paradigm methodologies such as boycotting, marching, and protesting. How much emphasis needs to be placed on our internal consciousness and developing individual new neural pathways in creating what you were working so hard on?
Well, absolutely. I mean, everything depends on that, really. I mean, one of the most common criticisms that I hear from people is we say, well, you can't have everything without a price system, because this A, B, or C, or whatever. These things like, who gets the beach house, and all the usual kind of criticism that people put up, or you can't calculate the economic supply and demand. And there's all these kind of barriers that people put up, and what that actually is people trying to mind map the system that I'm talking about onto the current system, but they don't fit. They just don't fit together. Yeah. And I think that's what people think is, well, I'm proposing something like, I don't know, a communism or something like that, where it's just like a kind of a rearrangement of the pieces on the board. But actually, what we're actually talking about is like an entirely new board altogether, an entirely new way of thinking. And that's what that's the message that really we try to get to people, because most people who come along to the idea of a money-free society, when they get over the initial barriers, they will kind of say, well, yeah, it would be nice. Yeah, I can see how it would be better. I can see it's desirable. But how do we solve this A, B, C, D, the usual list of problems? Yeah. And really the only answer for that I can offer is that it's not a new economic system. It's not a new political system. It's basically an entirely new way of thinking. And it's a way of thinking that basically where we completely reevaluate what it means to be human. I mean, it's not to put it too mildly. I mean, that's really where we're coming from here. That almost everything that we've been doing, our approach to everything, is actually having a really, really bad effect on our society and on the environment as a whole. So almost everything about our operating system has to be like completely replaced with entirely new information. We have, I mean, I think where the problems really started from was really from after World War II. We had a giant recession after World War II, and the TV was being invented, and these two events basically created consumer culture, essentially, because on the one hand, industry really needed to bring in money and the industry to bring in money because things were really, really bad, and the TV was lending itself to this fantastic way of actually persuading people to do whatever you want to do. And the combination of these two things basically created this enormous consumer culture, which is still exactly in operation today, exactly as it was then. It's no different at all. The technology has changed, but we're still exactly in that cycle.
I think that's a good point that you bring up. I spend a lot of time trying to stay focused on the real-time intel and having spontaneous conversations. But I do think it's a great point what you brought up, and that is that from World War II, and I think we can accept what's occurred. We don't have to get into the conspiratorial part of it. It's interesting, but it really doesn't serve us anymore. But the fact is the fact. This was all a program. It was all premeditated. We can talk Rothschilds. We can talk 13 families. We can talk Nazis. We can talk NASA, CIA. But the important thing is we're alert of it. We're cognizant of it. We're awake. And I think that the dialogue that you bring to the table of where this is a shift in consciousness is really where the meat and potatoes are. So, how do we, because it really sounds to me, and what I really loved about what you're saying is that this is an individual decision. It's a personal decision. And maybe the first place we start is when those that come to you and ask the question that you described is, who's going to be the first person to give up their marbles?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Give up their toys. This is not socialism. It's not communism. This is quantum, and we're coming from a linear, illusionary, programmed, conditioning existence. How much emphasis from your own, no right or wrong, from your own perspective, is initiatives such as this part of the 10 guidelines that you've laid out? How much of it is contingent upon each one of us accepting responsibility in our own divinity, and our own ability to be creators?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all contingent on that. That's really what we're talking about here. That's the scale of what needs to happen. It's not just a case of, okay, we'll vote out one government and we'll vote in another government that will do. They'll create a money-free society. It's not going to work like that. The only way it's going to work is, it's going to happen. It'll happen in two ways. It'll happen one way if we wait a long time. If we want to wait a couple of 100 years, then technology is just going to be overwhelming, and we're going to be like, we'll have nothing to do, and all the jobs will be just entirely wiped out, and that the market system will be wiped out by that sort of tidal wave of technology. That was probably going to take maybe 100 years or more before we're going to reach that level. But that, of course, we don't. The problem with that approach is that we don't know what's going to happen in the middle, because we're going to have all kinds of conflict and problems, undoubtedly, but before we reach that goal, because because we don't know that, like, the amount of social friction and political friction that's going to happen in those intervening years between now and waiting for technology to completely switch off the market system. That could cost a huge amount of environmental destruction, or even wars, or more human lives, or human exploitation. That's possibly incalculable. The preferred approach that I'm talking about and that I discuss mostly with people is basically using education and awareness and prototyping the ideas in a new way. What I mean by that is that that's what we're doing with this. I don't know if you've seen, we've created a new company, or one of the things is the 3 strands of our mission is to create, is to change education, is to create awareness, and to prototype the ideas. I can go through those 3 one by one. Education, obviously, education is an interesting one because we already have this fantastic precedence of educating people, which is really, really handy. You know, we have a whole school and education system and network already set up. It's already mandatory. Kids have to go there from a young age. They have to spend most of their childhood in this institution. Now, obviously, a lot of people have a huge problem with education in the sort of stuff they teach, and I have the same problem with that. That we more or less spend a lot of time teaching kids things that they rarely will ever use, and they're not even that useful in life. So, but the fact that we already have that system in place means that it gives us a supreme opportunity, really, to start replacing that information that people are giving out in schools, to actually start replacing the tired old arithmetic of learning maths and languages, even though they're useful. But we can also start inserting different lessons in terms of learning how to share and cooperate, learning how to understand understand the nature of the world and understand your place in the world and understand your place in the community. These are all the kind of the values that I touched on in the Free Word Charter, that basically becoming more aware of our place in the cosmos and in our local communities, and that we are not the center of the universe, but we are important. But we also have to view that other people and other beings and the environment are important too. So education is really, really important. So we need to start thinking differently about our approach to society, our approach to the world, and we can do a lot of that through the education system. And in fact, a lot of the problems that are already existent in the system today are also being taught in the education system. I mean, we have a competitive society, and we have a competitive school system. So obviously, you know, it's a no-brainer that a competitive school system prepares kids for a competitive society. And it's not just competitive in terms of grades, but competitive in terms of locking up all the kids together of the same age, where the maximum competition can exist. I mean, putting all the kids together in the same age is a way to maximize envy and jealousy among kids. So that's a terrible thing to do, really. But so a lot of the sort of the stuff that we see in society, the problems of the individualism and the greed and corruption and that sort of stuff. I mean, we're implicitly teaching all that in the schools in the way that we teach the information that we teach. So yeah, I'll get back to these a bit later on. Awareness then obviously is, well, stuff like what I'm doing now, where we're trying to reach more people. We're trying to get people enlisted in the ideas, people just to stop, sit and listen for a couple of minutes and just take the ideas in on board. We're trying to, the more we can actually get people to listen, then the more we can start triggering that process, because each of us has to take this kind of this mental process, and it takes time. You know, it's people who talk about a money-free society. They don't just click into that straight away, and everyone takes their time to do that. So we need to have awareness to actually start trickling out that information to people. I've done it through books. I have a couple of books for sale, hoping to turn one of the books into a movie. I've had a couple of people interested in helping me with that. So if we can get like something like a blockbuster movie actually promoting or proposing the idea of a money-free society on a big screen in front of lots of people who've never heard that idea before, is an amazing potential opportunity to actually suddenly reach, millions of people that you didn't reach before. So that's the F-Day book and the movie that could potentially create awareness. I'm just talking about my projects here because that's what I know about most. But of course, everything what you're doing as well is the same thing. You're promoting different ideas and different ways of thinking. So all that helps, that we're all doing it. All the little various groups, that's all bringing the awareness. It's really bringing us to a new audience, and then we can hope to start changing the way people think. Lastly, the other thing that we're doing is prototyping, and that is we want to prototype as much as possible, as much as practically possible, the sort of world that we're trying to create. So rather than just shouting at the screen all the day and saying, well, this is the sort of world we want, we're kind of saying, well, we're already in the business of building it, so we've already made a start. We created a community network site where people can go on and give and share free goods and services. That's called freeworlder.com. We have like thousands of people on there now already who are giving and sharing goods and services completely for free. No, it's not exchange, there's no payment, and people are very happy to do that. So this is one way where basically you're starting to prototype the idea. We'll say, well, instead of working towards a money-free economy, we'll say, well, look, here is one already working. It's very, very, very small. But if we continue working on this one, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And who knows, maybe someday a site like that or a similar site could actually replace the economy altogether. Because one of the things that has to happen, if we want to have this better structured sort of society and better structured world, then we do need to have a good idea of resources and where everything is, what skills are available, what resources are available and where. And so we really do need to have this kind of visualization of what's there. And that's what the Free Worlder site does. It basically, it's really a map-based site, and so you can see what goods and services people are offering in whatever part of the world that you're in. So you log on to the site and it'll show you what's available in your area. So that's one aspect of prototyping. HonorPay, which you mentioned earlier, is another prototype, and it's an extremely simple tool. In fact, sometimes it's so simple that I think it escapes people altogether. They expect to be some catch or something tricky about it, but actually there's nothing like that at all. HonorPay is really just a way of more or less saying thank you to somebody else, but in a kind of a quantifiable way. So if you do me a good turn or something like that, I can send you an honor through HonorPay, and then this will be logged on the HonorPay saying that Colin honored Todd on this date and left this message. So it's kind of it's a little bit of a scoreboard thing going on there now. So people can, like, the more people honor you, the more honors you get. But I don't mind that. A lot of people don't really like that idea so much, but I don't mind it as well, because it's all based on like good turns, good deeds. It's not about how many good deals you made. It's about how many good deeds you did. That's really the difference with HonorPay. So, and that's worked out quite well. So there's a lot of people on there who are giving out honors to friends or loved ones or whatever, or people that they met on the road, or people who did them a favor. And that works really well. So what that is it's kind of a replacement for a prototype replacement for the payment system. Like we have this system now where basically you do something for me, I pay you $20 or $50 or whatever it is. And I think that sort of reward feeling that you get when you do a good job, I think is something that we can retain, and maybe we should retain even in a money-free world. But it doesn't have to be in a form that actually causes like massive starvation in other parts of the world. What it means is that basically we can actually use a sort of it's like a symbol of payment, basically, but it's not actually payment of anything. So that's honor pay. That's like, again, it's another prototype of the sort of world that we're trying to create. So that's all keeping me busy anyway. I think you have, your video has disappeared, is it? Well, that's fine. I'll keep talking away to myself then. Hopefully you'll get back on soon, Todd. Yeah, the three strands I was talking about of the company that we created is, I want to talk a little bit about that company because it's interesting and a little bit controversial. So it's worth spending a bit of time explaining that. What we've done is, from the Free World Charter, we wanted to create a kind of an organizational tool to actually help us bring those ideas forward, the ideas of the Charter, through those three strands of education, awareness, and prototyping. And well, we discovered that the probably the most efficient way of doing that is actually through the monetary system, ironically enough. So what that means is that we've created like an enterprise startup, and it's a for-profit company, but all the profits that are made from the company are basically put back into other projects that could potentially be profitable or not. And it's like a way of ensuring that people who work within the company, like myself and other people, that people who can basically devote their time to it full time, because they're getting a salary from it. And what we did is then we linked the salaries into like the EU average, the current EU average, which basically means that no one gets above a certain salary, and the salary really is quite minimal. But the point is that to help people to actually really concentrate and focus on the work that we're trying to do, they don't have to worry about paying their bills. They don't have to worry about the other stuff that's going on, because one of the problems that we found with volunteering is that even though people are very enthusiastic and they love to help and they love the ideas, but they're still constrained with whatever job or whatever life that they have to do as well. So when you want to do something with volunteering, that's fine, but you have to expect that people are going to be working 8 hours a day in some other job. Then they're going to be coming and helping you with volunteering, and maybe they're going to have 1 hour, maybe 2 hours max, and they're going to be tired anyway. They're not going to be focused. So we actually found that because of that the volunteering only side of things was very ineffective. So that's why we created this company. And of course, as I said, the one of the principal tenets of the company is that all the salaries are capped to an EU average maximum wage. So no one is going to be is running off with all the profits and going to buy a yacht or anything like that. It's not that kind of company. We're calling it like a hybrid philanthropic company. So do check it out if you're listening on freeworld1.com. I think it explains kind of the idea quite well. So that company then is really like it's like an umbrella organization that covers all the projects that I'm involved with, like the Free World Charter, the Free Worlder, the free sharing website I mentioned, Honor Pay, and the books that I write. They all come into that. So all the money that comes in goes into the same company, and then we from that money we pay whatever salaries out to people, and then whatever is left over is put back into other projects. And of course, we have shareholders as well. So this is the other thing which has helped us raise investment. So like 50% of all the profits are going to go back into other projects, and then the other 50% is going to go back out to the shareholders, people who invested. And why not? Since we are still living in that system, I mean, everyone who is invested in it is they deserve a share back they deserve a share of what they've invested back, because let's be honest, we're still living in that system. So this is a way of enticing investors, which has worked very well. So the investment has worked. the investment drive has worked very well. So we have a lot of people invested, like nearly 400 people who've invested in the company, and they will all get a share of the profits when the company turns to profit. It's only a new company, so we're not expecting to be in profit for another couple of years. Next year, or early next year, we've just actually launched the first project, which is like the Life Games books, which is essentially the educational project. What we're doing is we have written activities for kids in elementary or primary school. Anyone from the ages of 3 to 12, we've basically created activity books for teachers that define sort of classroom activities that they can do that are fun, they're exciting, and they also promote stuff like empathy and compassion, cooperation, respect, responsibility, good communication, and critical thinking. Lots of things like that. It's pretty much it's quite a comprehensive package, and we're doing it in such a way that the teachers in the current system who are already teaching the maths and the languages and the stuff that maybe is the competitive stuff that maybe is not ideal, but we're doing it in a way that it's an adjunct to that, so they can take in these activities and work them into their normal class routine. So we're not trying to overturn the education system. We're actually basically trying to add into it. A lot of the teachers that we've spoken to they're really quite sympathetic with this idea that they have behavior problems in the class, and they want to teach kids more empathy and more responsibility and stuff like that. So they've really welcomed this idea, so that's fantastic, so we have this commercially viable product called Life Games, which is actually going out to just 50 schools in UK are actually trialing it for us in January. So really looking forward to seeing how that goes. And what will happen is the schools will basically try it out, and they'll report back to us how the activities have gone, how the kids liked it, and how the kids learned from it. And from that, then we will use that information to sort of refine the product. And then hopefully from next August, then we will start the books for sale for real. So this will be like a sellable commercial product that's actually has a massive potential market, and seems to be like a big demand for it. And this is something that we can actually potentially make a lot of money from. And we can use that money then to bring back into other projects and to pay the people who are basically making these projects happen. So for me, it's a beautiful medley of the old world and the new world. It's like basically we're taking the best of both and saying, okay, we're going to start teaching the new ideas, the better ideas, stuff that we want to see. And we're doing it within the current system, even within the current money system, which is basically just, like it or not, this is the way we're operating now, and we do need to operate in that to some degree. Of course, no organization out there is any exception to that, and a lot of them do set up like non-profit organizations and charities and non-governmental organizations. And so a lot of people do that, but we found that that's because we have such a wide variety of projects going on. We found that was just a too limiting approach. And that we wanted to be able to have more control over how we were actually going to use the funds. Whereas with charities and NGOs, the funding is really, really strictly overseen. So what we're looking at is something that we basically have a hardcore group of maybe 4 or 5 people who are really steering the company and putting the ideas. We're all great people who are really enthusiastic about the ideas. So no one is in here to make money out of it. We're all here to help make a better world, but we would like to have a salary as well while we're doing that. I don't think that's unreasonable in this day and age. And it's good. It's a great way of keeping everyone focused and energized without having, like, say, the problem with volunteering, where you're kind of dealing with sort of semi-exhausted people all the time. So there you go. That's pretty much a roundup of the sort of stuff that I've been up to. If you're new to the kind of work that I've been doing, maybe a good place to start would be freeworld1.com, because that's the company, and all the projects that I'm involved in are actually listed on that website, and you can start that. And sorry, it's not just me, of course. There are a team of other people. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, lots of things going on, and we're very new to the game. In company-wise, it's only a brand new company, so we're still looking for investors, of course, as well, to bring us up to help bring the products out. If you can help with that, that would be fantastic. But if not, do have a look at the Free World One website and see what it's all about, and maybe hopefully from there you can branch out and see all the other things that we've been up to, basically, because this is an idea that's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier there, Todd, it's we can just sit back and wait for technology to completely tsunami the whole market system out of existence. That will happen. There's no doubt about that. That will happen. But I think that will happen maybe at too long a time and maybe at too great a cost. I think there could be enormous problems between this day and that day. So I prefer to start making it happen today in any ways we can. And there are lots of ways we can make that happen already today. Free Worlder is obviously this is our little tiny prototype economy. If we can build that into like a really viable, robust app like Uber or Airbnb or like Amazon or something like that, if a program like that gets that big, then suddenly we really have a contender for the market economic system. So because if enough people are giving and sharing, it really shows that actually can replace the incumbent system as it is. Anyway, I think I've more or less given you enough of a background to that. I see that Todd is missing in action. Maybe I don't know, maybe he has a power cut or something like that. Anyway, if you're still on, thanks a lot for listening. I'll sign out on Todd's behalf, and maybe he can thank me for it later. But yes, I'm Colin Turner. Look me up on freeworld1.com. I'll post some other links down under the video on the main page as well, so you can check out other stuff that I've been up to. So thanks very much, and good night to you all from Spain. Talk soon. Bye-bye.